Hello and welcome again to One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. Guys, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all the things. That's how we get the word out to everyone out there. So I'm excited for our guest today. Jan and I just met. She actually runs a bike store, has for like 37 years. So lots of experience, which I'm excited to dive into. Mother of two boys, husband, all the things. So thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you. And it's a bike and cross-country ski store and alpine store. So Actually we do a huge amount in the ski business as well, and a run store. So it's a little bit of every specialty sport.
Cool. Okay. What got you into it, 37 years ago? What got you into starting? You said you were in the corporate world. You came out, you guys started this business. Tell us a little bit about your journey, why you started it, how it was at the beginning, all that kind of good stuff.
Well, I think I started looking at my life, and I was commuting an hour into work in the Chicago area. And then I was also going to business school at night for 2.5 years. So my life consisted of commuting, work in an office in a telecommunications company. And I really wasn't that interested in telecommunications. I just fell into that job. But the company paid for business school, which was a really wonderful treat. But then they hired an MBA over me. They didn't really know I was going to business school, and I was mad. So I quit it all after I finished, and then bought a bike store with two other persons because I was falling in love with triathlons. So that's how I got into it in the short world.
So when you started it, now it was a little while ago to think about, but what were some of the obstacles you had to overcome? What were some of the biggest obstacles you had?
There was huge obstacles, I feel. In 1985, there wasn't computers. So I really did not have any. I tried to find mentors to figure out how to pay attention to how do you run a small business. An MBA doesn't really teach you that, not in the smallest sense of the world. And if I ever tried if I pushed along and had any business groups, they were mostly women who ran nail salons or hairdressing, which is fine, but it really wasn't where I wanted to go. I just sort of found Arte, and that's at a ripe old age of 63 and a half. And I think finding and having like-minded people of which you could communicate with at an earlier age would have been really fun. I felt I could have learned a lot more had I figured out who I could have learned from.
Yes, I think coaching is very important. So anyone listening, find a coach. There's so many options nowadays out there. Find a coach that's doing what you want to do longer than you. Learn from them.
In the days when there wasn't podcasts, which is even a shorter time period versus the internet, there really wasn't that option too readily.
No, there wouldn't have been back then. So what did you do? What were some things that got you through, that got you going, and tell us a little bit about what you did do then.
Oh, well, like everything that Andy Frisella might say, or anyone else that runs their own business, you plow yourself through, and then you get whacked down. And there's plenty of times when I sat on the steps of the store after something didn't go right with a customer, and I had tried really hard, and I have all millions of little stories, or hanging from the ceiling trying to put fire retardant on as we're trying to keep costs down and get this business. When I moved to Minnesota, and we started a business called Gear West up here. But it's like whack-a-mole. It just knocks you down, and you keep on going, and you try to figure out how to do things better. And I'm still trying to do that even at this age. But you can look back 37 years. And for me, in any industry that a person has been familiar with, I could probably write a book about what's happened, in the retail end of things, let alone I'm sure you could in the investment end.
So, what got you through those days? So those days, because I think that's where so many people obviously quit, and, they're kind of 3 feet from gold, so to speak. Like, the days you're sitting on the steps and you're like, man, like, I don't know if you're like me, I cry some days.
Yeah.
But, on those days, like, I'm sure you're like, man, what if I just went back to my corporate job? Did that thought ever cross your mind?
Oh, yes, it did.
Okay.
I thought, I got an MBA.
I was like, I'm sure it did. I was like,
MBA from Kellogg, it could be way easier. I wouldn't have to worry about the whole structure, just myself. There was several times, especially in my younger life, that I thought so. And then you add kids into it, and you're trying to raise those. And it's only now that I look back and I think, okay, Jan, you're trying to do a lot, and maybe you knock yourself down because you couldn't be like the Spanx lady or somebody that could figure out something to move forward in life. I don't know. You're so busy that you can't think. I mean, I guess there is I think an enduring trait in anyone starts their own business is you're just sure you can figure it out. You just haven't figured it out yet. You think you can.
I agree with that. Where did that self-belief come from, Jen? Did you always have it, or what instilled that? Because I think self-belief is something I touch on a lot. And I feel a lot of people are working through it and maybe don't have it. So
self-belief is something I could talk about forever. And I mentioned to you a very big interest of mine is working with women who don't have the self-belief they can stay healthy.
Yeah.
I noticed you wanted to, move through any health issues you're facing and run. I deal with a lot of women for a lot of different issues that feel they're either out of shape, not fit enough, not svelte enough to learn how to cross-country ski, learn how to run. And if you dovetail that back to your question, I think people have to figure out what gives them their personal self-confidence, what gives them internal strength to know that they're worth something. I think women struggle with worth.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a strong woman does not look like a strong woman in the eyes of men. They look like a blunt, overbearing woman, whereas strong men have a different connotation.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, not that I hang my hat on having issues being a woman, but you do have to be aware of how people perceive you and how you move along in life. And to me, any person that's looking for self-worth has to figure out what makes them internally happy. And internal happiness for me, I found it in outdoor activities. And I stumbled on it, I think. I always loved sports, but I didn't really know what I liked. My parents wanted me in tennis, and I hated indoor stuff. And I fell into sports when I realized I was commuting to work, sitting all day. And I thought, oh my God, this is what life is. And I stumbled upon some friends introduced me to what I call a sport of season, biking, running, turned into triathlons. And then I absolutely fell in love with cross-country skiing, which is why I met our ski rep. He worked for Fisher Skis, lived in Minnesota, moved up here, felt we could offer a better store than the stores he was seeing. And I ended up training for skiing, went to the Olympic trials. So I dived headlong into skiing, but I found my self-worth in my love and the return that feeling alive in outdoor sports gave me, and then having a piece of self-confidence in that and doing pretty well in that. And I think whatever people find that they feel good about themselves, and it's not just buying things,
Mm-hmm.
or
right.
There's a constant search for people to, you're trying to figure out what it is. And that gave me I think the strength to know that, just how to bumble my way on through and know that, I could take it. I just hadn't figured it out yet, which I still haven't figured it out, but I keep trying.
We're always working on it. Yes, because that would have been like we were talking about, our society has come, I think, a really long way. I haven't had, honestly, a lot of per se struggles being a woman in a man's world or anything like that. I used to drive trucks, so I was very much a woman in a man's world. And I was treated really good. But I know you go back 30 years, that was a whole different mindset.
Because I was sent to go, I bought for our store. We would go to buying shows, and they would have you test equipment, and they would have no equipment in a woman's size. So it wasn't that there was outwardly, it's just they
just didn't have it.
Just didn't have it. And I would look at them and say, well, if you want me to buy something, you better have something that fits us. And that's evolved over time. And I've, been on a lot of organizations and companies where they're trying to figure out colors. And I'll say, okay, you don't color it pink. It's not maybe, you don't need a different top sheet to make it look like a woman's ski if it's not anything different. Just put it out there, be real, and, meet your customers where they are and don't sort of pander to them. But you still have to have a story. I mean, it's a fine line on how you move forward as a manufacturer, and for me, how to encourage other women to find their, their strength. I mean, I deal with women in sports, and so many women say, I'm raising kids. I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I don't feel good about myself. And so I've, over the years, with some of my women friends, have started a lot of events that I think lay down the red carpet for women, whether it's, ski, wine, and chocolate. It softens the approach. It allows women to feel that they can come in at any level of fitness and feel supported, and then feel like they exit a weekend event with a little bit more understanding and knowledge of what they can do. And then they find that there's all sorts of other women in the same field. I'm on the board of the American Birkebeiner. We don't have a lot of women in those races. And so finally got them to start a women's only race called the Ski to Ski. And that was last year. And it was now it's the largest women's ski event in the US. I mean, we're talking niche, but it's cool. And we built some, just sort of events around it and bringing women in and young high school women in. So there's a lot of really rewarding things, but I think women just are faced with a couple issues that aren't really created by men, but you always feel like many of us feel like we're not good enough. We're trying to raise kids and also trying to maybe do a career, and then you still want to look good and feel healthy. And it's just a lot of juggling, and women have to realize that they can stand where they are and then move forward and not feel
now I know you started your business with your husband. So obviously he's a pretty strong guy at some point to, work together. What were some of that? And I know you mentioned he has some health issues now, and you're kind of doing it a little more by yourself, I guess you could say, from what I gather. Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges of spouses in business that you guys went through?
I think you have to have very separate roles. I ran the business side of it. He ran the ski selling side of it. It's a toll. There's no doubt about it, because you never forget about it at any part of your day. And you have to almost have a rule that you can't talk about it at night, because you get really mad and you just
can't go to sleep.
It's just an interesting life. It's very different, I'd say. My kids now like sports. They didn't want to wear anything with Lycra, because they wanted to stand against the store and everything we represented. But then again, they loved the store because it allowed me some flexibility. I could go in and out of their school and come back to work. And I dealt with a lot of women. We have customers who are lawyers that were trying to make partners in a law firm, that were trying to, had kids that had zero flexibility in running home to take care of their kids. And they had back issues, and it really wasn't back issues. It was stress. Mm-hmm. So, all these things face a lot of different people, and you just try to make it work. But yes, I think couples that run a small business, for the most part, have a very unique relationships, and they have to figure out how to make it work, or they'll eat each other up.
I can see that. Yeah. That's really cool. So tell us, has it been worth it? Like, why are you still doing it? And tell us, like, what made it worth it going through all of that stuff?
What made it worth it for me is, I think I'm lucky I found a business that, even though it's my vocation and avocation, and so you always have that stress, I found a business that reflects what I love. So it's not like I just bought some sort of franchise and I'm in the printing business or something. I really don't care about it. I love what I do. I love my customers. In the beginning, I'm not really great at numbers. So for me, having multiple stores was a decision I made. I just wanted one unique weird store, and that's sort of what we are. There's really nothing quite like us, and it's also very hard for me to ever try to sell it, probably. We're just an odd business because we kept adding things along the way. And I'm a little ADHD, and the store reflects it. So what was the question? Yes, I love it. I love my customers a lot. I have a customer that walked in with a stack of receipts of everything he bought in the 20 years he knew us, from raising his kids to introducing to cross-country skiing to his whole family loving cross-country skiing. And he just wanted to thank me by showing me all of the receipts that he had over the years and the influence we made on his life. And we have a really great set of customers. I mean, they're people who care about their health and are passionate in one reason or another. So and I have great staff. So when I look at and the high school kids are wonderful. So I look at all the people that have influenced me, or hopefully I've influenced them. It's again, something you can't touch, but you work for every piece of it. That's all I can say. And nobody really realizes it, but maybe the owners and a couple of others.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, you just got into RTA. Obviously, that's how we met. But like you said, way back then, there wasn't a lot of that out there. So did you get into reading? Because I know books have been around, or like, at what point did you even start down the journey of personal development and,
Well, I'm a psychology major, so I always like personal development, and I like to figure out why I chose things and what's working, what's not. Yes, I'm a voracious reader, so I would read all the time, but I would feel that I truly don't think there were a few solid books out that I think are still classics that are suggested in the reading list by Arte and everybody else. And but I tried different business groups, and either they were very expensive and meant for corporations who would pay for them, so then I would find one or two that I thought were useful. But what would happen is you would have one person from every industry. So by the time you got around to your issues every 2 or 3 weeks, although I loved listening about everyone else's industry, it really wasn't quite as useful for me as I thought. I had some very specific problems and ongoing challenges that I absolutely love the foundation of what I see in Arte, although I feel I'm on the older end and haven't really found a lot of people, at least they're active in the group, that maybe reflect a little more of a mature side of running a business, or maybe I just have a different outlook on things, because I'm not necessarily building it. I'm building it, but I'm trying to figure out where it's going to go in the next phase of my life. So, yeah, I mean, I just worked, and once in a while popped my head up and tried to figure out who was out there. So
what are some tips that you think would make it, I don't know what easier is the right word. What are some mines that you hit, or potholes, or whatever, that, if someone is starting out, that would possibly help them avoid some of the stresses that you went through?
Well, I think finding a good coach is very helpful. I think there's a lot of coaches out there, like psychiatrists or anything else. You have to find one that fits your mentality. So, but I think it can be extremely helpful. I do feel like Andy says that you still can't find the answer you can find ideas, but you have to put those ideas to work. I mean, there's some few basics. You have a bad employee, get rid of them. That's probably one of the hardest things I've learned to do. It's very hard to move an employee that does not fit values. It's taken me a long time to actually understand the importance of creating values for a store, and understanding that words are just words until you really seriously pick them. And then you can use them for your values and use them as an independent source. So it's not just my vision that this person doesn't work. It's our corporate or our group's vision that it doesn't work. So to me, that's something I hadn't really learned for some time, because when you're small, you're too busy and you think you don't have enough people. But having a core sense of values and really using those words to reflect who you want can be a cornerstone for keeping good people, and bad people can just ruin you. They can just destroy, at least for me, a woman, they can destroy your sense of self-confidence because they're out to get you. And I take it personally, and probably a little harder than a lot of men do. So I think that's a huge point. One of my goals is actually on the side to try to help women that are in, or anybody, I mean, I think I can relate to women more, but that are in some sort of business and moving forward, and maybe I could give them a little bit more wisdom like that. but it's really unique for the whomever, what kind of business you are in, and whether you're trying to raise kids. I mean, I used to, business school, you used to get these wonderful little case studies, and they were case studies of, I get a lot of candy stores in the Chicago area, and you would, what could they do differently? How could they do it better? What were the owners doing right or wrong? And like now, I mean, any answer I gave was ridiculous because you didn't have a context. Were they older? Were they younger? Were they raising kids? Now we have the whole value situation, which, I think we could write a story about running a business during the pandemic and how you run it for a whole variety of people that have all different beliefs, and how you try to stay independent, but you try to stay strong for your beliefs, and you try to stay representative of all of your employees who rightfully have different fears along the way. So there's just so much to put into an idea of how you should run a business, but their core values. And I think Arte is very good at expressing them.
Yeah, I got that. So core values, you got to fire somebody. That's what I got out of that.
At least you can move forward with, with the ideas in mind. And of course there's some point in your business where you have to get out of running it and then into managing it. And that's a very interesting point. And you need to do both when you start it. And as it grows and matures, you need to get out of it. And managing is a whole different deal. And you have to learn what you can't do or you don't do well, and don't beat yourself out about it, and try to hire that out and focus on what you can do. Because if you try to do it all, you just bum yourself out. At least I do,
You wear yourself out too. I think I've heard that lots. Like really good leadership is actually letting other people do their thing. Even
exactly. And then I'm a big one for health. If you don't get out, to me, running a business is like digging a hole in the sand next to a beach. The moment you stop digging, it just keeps filling up. So if you don't make time for yourself, it will fill up instantly. And I remember I was pregnant. It's like, oh, wow, I don't have to work out anymore. I'll just work more. And it didn't really make any difference. And, I still had a lot of stuff to do. And now I don't have kids picking up in daycare and they're gone. And I still have a lot to do. So you have to dig that piece out for yourself, because then I think it gives you energy to come back and you feel happy for the rest of your day. So whatever that is, whether it's yoga or taking a walk outside, but really building that into your life. And I found out about Andy and moved into Arte through the 75 Hard. And I'm understanding a little bit more what is behind the 75 Hard. For me, the workout part wasn't hard, but carrying around water actually was. We all have our different things we can do and we can't do. And so, it's interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Did you, so when you would take the time, this is something that's helped me, and I'm curious, did you do like similar, maybe obviously not the same quote unquote, but like a power list, or like, hey, these are the things I have to do every day to move my business forward. You have to look after your health. That should be on the checklist. And then in the business side, did you have some checklist items that like you just were concentrated on every day?
Well, we're all very good in some things and not others. I always block time for working out, because I knew that was the cornerstone of why I was in this business. Otherwise, I might as well be in a corporate business. So I always made time and built time for that no matter what. But the power list thing is really useful. I just figured that out about 3 days ago. Cool. I've tried about millions of different lists because, of course, my brain's all over the place. And I try, I'll have a list on my phone. I'll have a list on a piece of paper. I like that leather bound one. That should be way more effective. And I have zillions of lists everywhere. And then I don't trust any lists because they're never really that great. And no, little things like carrying water or little lists or having it organized. I knock down the most important things first is something I completely struggle with because I jump into shiny objects. So that's still an ongoing challenge for me. So now I'm trying the power list.
I love it. So if anyone's listening, because I think a lot of, it's funny, a lot of my team, they're like, I have ADHD. I'm like, I'm sure I do too. I'm sure everyone pretty much does to a degree. And I think that I'm starting to think that entrepreneurs, we might have a little bit more than others. That's why we don't do well in a corporate setting, because it's like too structured. And we're like not about structure. However,
you need structure.
We need structure to run a business. And there is something, like I said, if you aren't that structure, check out the power list. That's something Andy talks about. It works really well. Or like your top 5, your daily goals, do something. That's something that I know has really helped me throughout my last, years. I'm very much like I do this, this, and this, and this. And if I get all that done, which normally I get it done by noon, I'm like, really, if my rest of my day goes crazy, I did my things. And
I think it's super important. And my list started growing to 8 to 10, and then they really weren't lists, they were goals. And then I knew I wanted to accomplish them, so I didn't bother to look at them. And then I had them all mixed up, and I didn't see the little ones and the big ones. And I finally looked up the power list, and I put it out there, and someone told me where to find it on episode 86 or something. So I pulled it out. It's like, okay, I will just do a doable list. And I really like the place where you either put a win, and you just, in that way, that stuff doesn't eat at you every day. And so I think it's really pretty genius, and it's simple.
Yeah, I agree. So anyone that's listening, check that out, or check out 75 Hard. That's also a really cool program to organize your life. It's really what the whole purpose of it is. So really, really cool. So in wrapping up, I always have 3 final questions, and then anything that we didn't touch on that you think, our listeners really need to hear. So first final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, what's one sentence you would say that could help them find it?
Just find out what you love to do. Probably by your time in your mid-20s or 30s, you know what moves the needle, and make sure you build that into your life, because you'll look back at it and really feel happy that you did it, and you'll be able to work it in your life somehow.
I love it. Number 2, what's your favorite quote and why?
Oh, I'm really bad at remembering quotes. So I would have to get that. I can't remember any quote now, but I have too many quotes. You've got some awesome quotes that you put out every day. I'm moving and trying to understand faith a little more. So there's wonderful Psalms that I'm trying to understand and use. And then they all get in my mind, and they all fall out by the afternoon. So maybe that's a part of being too old. So I'll have to figure that one out. And then, of course, I have, what do you have on Thursdays when you, what's the book that people, he sends out all of his quotes, business quotes. It's, oh my God, it's the book on how to get things done. Oh, well, anyway, there's a lot of good quotes out there, but
there are.
I can't remember them.
If it comes to you by the end, let me know.
Okay.
And then what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone? How do you want to be remembered?
She brought love into all the things she does. I mean, to me, the whole purpose of everything is finding love in your life in terms of what you love to do, your business relationships, your kids' relationships. It's really the most value.
I love it. So if you run into someone in a coffee shop and they're like, Jan, that was awesome. Like, now I'm going to get into like some kind of activity, biking or cross-country skiing or something. But was there anything that we didn't touch on today that you think we really should touch on and leave our listeners with?
No, but I just think if there's any women out there that are really trying to push into an arena that they know they want to do and can't figure out how to do it in the areas that I am strong in, I would love to help. And I love small business, and I love the outdoors and getting fit in any level. And I'm super passionate about that. I think I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm love to help, just like that's why I sort of gravitated to you and Arate and what you've been pushing out.
I love it. Super awesome. Well, guys, we'll have all of her links and all of her information in the show notes. 100% reach out to Jan. I know she'll be here to help 100%. So definitely reach out. Let's go out there, guys. Let's change one starfish or one person at a time. If we can change one life at a time together, we can change the world. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Angela. Nice to meet you.